Today was an event that culminated a year-long pilot project to implement complete streets in Baton Rouge.
It is a community issue because if you make streets safe for the older members of the family, then you've made them safe for everybody.
All right, I'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome you to Making It Happen, Bold Moves in Great Cities. My name's Janet Tharp, and I'm the Planning Director for the Center for Planning Excellence and have been working here for a number of years, working on plans throughout the state. We have, one of the things that we are asked a lot about is we don't want a plan that sits on the shelf, and everywhere we go we hear that. And how do you implement plans? We have people who have called us who have recently adopted plans but really don't know what those next steps are to implement them and to really bring all of the great ideas that the stakeholders and citizens had come together and come to life. So we have three speakers today who are going to talk about their successes in their cities and implementing some real strategic big moves that have changed how the city looks and feels and improve the quality of life. Unfortunately, the mayor from Lafayette, Mayor Roy, Alexandria, sorry, I'm getting my presentations mixed up, cannot attend. And so we were lucky to have the past mayor from Hernando, Mississippi, step in for us, and he's going to tell about some of the big moves that he's had in the past. Before I get started introducing our three speakers, we want to recognize our sponsor, which is On-Site Design and Development. We really appreciate you sponsoring us. And we also want to recognize Blue Cross Blue Shield as a platinum member and sponsor. And I believe that you're here today. If you want to, either one of you, if you'll raise your hands, I'd appreciate that. Great, thank you very much. So our first speaker is Ronny Walker, who's the mayor of Ruston. Mayor Walker has been deeply involved in the economic growth and civic well-being of Ruston and Lincoln Parish for his entire adult life. He was elected mayor of Ruston in 2014 and took office in 2015. Prior to becoming mayor, he served at the Temple Baptist Church in Ruston for 9 years. And while he was there, he really started seeing the importance of business, the economic future, and quality life of the city, and began working for more than two decades on creating a better future for Lincoln Parish, Louisiana Tech University, and the city of Ruston. He's held numerous positions on boards, both business and nonprofit boards, and has served as president of chambers, universities, and has been on the Lincoln Parish Police Jury and the Lincoln Parish Library Board, so really has a broad range of experience he's going to bring to you to talk about what has happened in Ruston in the recent past. Our new guest, and thank you very much for coming at the last minute and speaking with us, also has great experience in bringing change to his community. And last night he was telling me he might have had too much experience in bringing change to his community. And he's the former, not for the community, it's really been a great improvement there, but he's the former mayor of Hernando, Mississippi. He was a leading figure in promoting many smart growth issues throughout the city while he was mayor there for 12 years. He helped establish a new city parks department that built 5 major parks and other recreation facilities, and that's in a community of about 16,000. He was influential in making Hernando a more pedestrian and bicycle-friendly place, adopted a complete streets policy, and the city now requires sidewalks on all streets and also has a network of bicycle paths throughout the community. He led joint use agreements with schools and parks and enabled the community to use those schools after school hours. And I think that that's something a lot of cities strive to do and really want to see those assets used. And then he was one of 2 mayors that was invited to kick off First Lady Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign. And then our third speaker will be Jacques Baumann, who's the chief engineer for the city of Gonzales. We've worked closely with Jackie. She's implemented some planning work that we did in Gonzales and has been, in my mind, one of the leaders in the engineering profession as far as getting smart growth and being able to implement it. She's a professional registered civil engineer. She began her career designing residential and commercial developments, and then about 10 years ago joined Ascension Parish as their engineer, and for the past 7 years has been dedicated to the city of Gonzales and working to manage water, sewer, gas, roadway infrastructure projects, and from my perspective, just about anything else that happens in the city. And with that, Mayor Walker, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I appreciate the Smart Growth Group inviting me to be a part of this. As was said, I was elected 3 years ago, so I'm a rookie mayor, enjoying my first term. And Ruston's a great, unique town in North Louisiana that many people don't know about, but we've got a great university, Louisiana Tech, located there, of course, and only 3 miles away we have Grambling State also. I was asked to talk today about our Moving Ruston Forward initiative, our quality of life issues that we've tried to address, and then our sports complex that we are just started construction about 3 weeks ago. So when I became mayor, I started looking at each individual department. Coming from the banking industry, I was looking to see what our plans were for 10 and 15 and 20 years down the road. And like many cities, what I found was we had lots of projects that were on the books. Some of them had been there for 22 years, but there was one missing piece, and that was money to do those projects. Like so many southern towns also, our southern part of our city, where most of, or some of the population lives below the poverty line, was lacking the most. So we really needed to address some major infrastructure work throughout our city. So what we did was put together about $100 million, a little over $100 million worth of projects that our department heads found was necessary, real critical needs within our city. Those involved water lines, sewer lines, upgrading our wastewater treatment plant, new streets. But we didn't want to go in and put a new street in without first looking at the water and the sewer lines below it, because I got so tired of seeing cities put a new street in or overlay a street, but then come back 6 months later and find out the sewer's bad and have to tear it up and start over. So we've done extensive testing and looking at our streets. We did a complete evaluation of every street within our city. We looked at all of our needs as far as utilities, in the process of building another substation because of that. But we found lots of needs, a lot more needs than $100 million, as you can imagine. But we decided to go to our people with a tax, a 3/4 cent sales tax. And we did that through 30 town hall meetings that we did in January and February. Had tremendous response from across the city because people all of a sudden saw, because we had slides and presentations showing them the needs we had in our city. And Ruston is one of those cities that when they see a need, they're willing to step forward. We thought we had everything laid out perfect until the state decided to increase the sales tax on April 1st, and our vote was on April 9th, only 8 days later. Fortunately, our people saw the need anyway. They passed it by 69%, and we started the projects. I'm happy to say today that we're starting over $80 million worth of infrastructure this calendar year. To put that in perspective, the most our city's ever done was started in 1 year was $12 million, and that's with smaller staff than they even had back then. Our people have really stepped up. But I think the key to it was this whole process, the 30 town hall meetings, really pulled our city together. North, south, east, and west, everyone came together realizing that there were projects throughout our city. Yes, there's a lot more projects on the south side of our city because the needs were so great there. But it's all of a sudden developed a real excitement in our city. Usually you have a lot of complaints about roads being closed or orange cones being out, but our people are excited to see what's happening, and they don't mind spending the money and us spending the money if they know where it's going. We set a website up so they could see exactly whatever project if it was on a timeline or not, how much it was going to cost, if it was over or not. So that was the first step in moving our city forward, and that's the reason we called it Moving Ruston Forward Initiative, and we've been very excited about that. Next thing I want to talk about was about three quality of life issues. First, a vibrant downtown. Second, a partnership with Louisiana Tech, which is so important because of what Louisiana Tech means to our city. Third, recycling. Fourth, shared use path, or part of our active transportation plan. And fifth, a farmer's market. So the first one was our downtown. We already had some work done. Previous administrations had gone in downtown and buried the utility lines, had put in new flower beds, made the town look a lot better, but it wasn't the center of activity. Downtown wasn't. We have a park right downtown. It's called Railroad Park on the railroad. A few activities took place there, but not much. So we've tried to expand that. Our Main Street director has done a tremendous job of helping with that. But some of the things we're doing now, like Rock the Railroad, that's every Friday night before a Tech home game. We have a pep rally, we have a live band, we have food trucks there. It's a time for folks to come together, not only from the city, but the university also. Small things like in the bottom picture, you'll see that's our Veterans Day event from last year. We had a stage there in downtown, but it wasn't covered. It was just a concrete stage. We spent a little money with the CVB and the chamber to add that cover on our downtown stage, and all of a sudden it's become a venue, a place that people want to have events. I tell people all the time, if I knew Christmas lights would excite people as much as they did, I would have bought them in January 1st, my first year, and put them up. We had old Christmas lights like many cities, and they'd been there for years. My assistant came to me a couple of years ago and said, let's please buy some new lights. So I pretty well gave her a green light to spend almost what she wanted to spend. But it has totally changed the atmosphere within our city. Now I get asked all the time, when are the lights going back up? I mean, it was such a big deal to our people. So that's been big. The picture on the left and the bottom is a picture of what they call Dining in the Pines. That's one of our nonprofits in our city. They set up tables the full length of that block right in front of our park. It's like a giant dining room table, and have a dinner, and that's a fundraiser that they have there. So all of a sudden, downtown is becoming the place to have events and be. Also with Louisiana Tech there in their art department, we've done several murals throughout our city. The Makers Fair is on the left. The Bulldog Project there is being done by Main Street also. That's where those are about 3-foot tall bulldogs. We ask artists to come in with what they would like to do to them, then they were auctioned off. They'll be throughout our city. That's been a big help to us, again, bridging that Louisiana Tech downtown Ruston connection. The building to your right is the federal building in our city. It was built in 1909. We bought it 2 years ago and are in the process of getting ready for a total renovation, taking it back to the way it was in 1909. That will be an art gallery that is right across from what we call our Dixie Theater, which is in the art district within our city. Next, partnership with Tech. I mean, you can't say enough about Tech and what they do, but the reason I call this a quality of life issue is because Louisiana Tech brings so many things to our city. Not only the arts that they have, but also the athletic events, the educational events. But as I tell the kids, the bottom picture where it says Dog Days of Summer, that is actually the new Tech students who will be coming this summer, in the fall. This is orientation. They have 5 different nights. They come downtown. There's a pep rally, and the shops do things for them. The parents come to the Civic Center, and we have a mayor's dinner for them. But I tell them all the time, they bring so much to our city just in the energy they bring. You get 13 or 14,000 18 to 22, 23-year-olds, and the excitement that they bring, the energy that they bring to our city is tremendous. So we're really privileged and honored and grateful to have a university like Louisiana Tech right there. Dr. Geis does a tremendous job helping me with economic development. He understands where economic development plays with the university. So to us, partnership with the university is a huge quality of life within our city. Next, recycling. We're one of the few cities in North Louisiana that do recycling. No, we don't make money off of it, but we were in a situation where we had inherited a garbage plan that was 50 years behind. We needed to change it, so we took this opportunity to add recycling. It's not mandatory, it's voluntary. No, we don't have as many people signed up as we'd like to. We're in our first year, but just the few we have, which is about 7% of our total customers, have made a tremendous difference in the amount of trash that's being hauled from the city of Ruston to Farmville, 35 miles away to the landfill. So recycling has been a big deal for us. As we look at retirees and young couples who want to come to a city, they're looking at things like recycling. The next thing is bike trails. When I came on board as mayor, we had 0 bike trails. As I said, we're a 2-college town, and I immediately realized we had to change that because that was so important to have either bike trails or shared use paths throughout our city. We're very fortunate to have the Rock Island Greenway, which is a north-south railroad track that has been abandoned for about 30 years. We bought those right-of-ways and started the first phase of the Rock Island Greenway. The picture on the left there, you'll see several people, some folks that are a lot older than I am, and I'm pretty old myself, but those are some of the very people who own property along that railroad, but they saw the need for this. But also there's some guys there that are 75 and 80 years old that have been riding bikes in Ruston for decades, and they couldn't believe we finally had a place safe for them to ride because of this first phase. It's a total of 6 miles, you can see, that runs north and south, but because of that first phase, we have secured 2 $1 million grants to provide east-west connectors to that main Rock Island Greenway. Ammon Jordan, who is here on the front row, heads this up for me in the city and is doing a great job. But all of a sudden now, within the next year or so, we'll have 20 miles of bike trails or shared use paths. All the roads that we're adding or redoing in the city, we're adding a shared use path to it as part of our active transportation infrastructure. This is second only to the lights, I promise you, as far as what people really love. And then last on quality of life issues was the farmers market. We had a farmers market that's set up every Saturday in a parking lot downtown. We had this old water building that was unused that we leased it to them for, I think, $1 a year or something like that. They took it, they've changed it. You're talking about a hub for your city. All age groups are there on Saturday morning. People go because they have food trucks there and food, but produce and everything else. And it's just a gathering place on Saturdays. We're expanding it to include some more food truck area plaza there. Really excited about what that means to our city. And then last, one of the biggest projects, or the biggest project within moving Ruston forward, was a sports complex. We had talked as a city for the last 10 years about the need to not only upgrade our recreational facilities, but also provide a place for travel team tournaments to come. That's one of the biggest things in the South now as far as tourism and bringing dollars to your city. And Ruston's no different from any other city. We depend heavily upon sales tax for our budget items. So this is a 185-acre tract. We owned part of it beforehand. We got 52 acres donated. We purchased another about 60 acres, total of about 185 acres. It will have 8 girls softball fields, 9 tennis courts, 8 Dixie baseball fields, 3 t-ball fields, one of which will be a buddy ball field, a splash pad, a 6.5-acre pond, high school baseball field, 3 soccer areas, and a cross-country track. What's exciting to me about this project is that the tax that we passed to do this was 20 years. We did an economic impact from this park for the next 18 years, and it's a $1.2 billion impact to our city. Unlike most cities that can host 2 or 3 tournaments a weekend, this venue will be able to host 6 different tournaments at the same time. So we're really excited about what it's going to bring to our city. the people who will come visit what we consider, we think anyway, is the greatest city in North Louisiana. But it also provides our young people and our Parks and Recreation program a venue for use Monday through Thursdays, and then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday it will be travel team tournaments and other tournaments at this complex. So this, I thought this would be something, because it's a $35 million project. It's huge. But I couldn't believe how many grandmothers and granddads came up to me and said, I'm so excited about this. We're 20 years behind getting something like this. The other thing that's exciting is we're continuing the recycling idea and being environmentally friendly to this park also. 100% LED lights, and everything that we sell in the concession areas will be recyclable. So we feel like it's going to be a one-of-a-kind complex within the state and also in the South. So thank you for your time. We feel like I'm a little partial, to say the least, but I think Ruston is the gem in North Louisiana that so many people forget about. When you're traveling, come through Ruston and see what we have in this great city. Thank you.
Well, since I was just asked to speak last night at dinner, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, but I have this lovely speech I wrote. We've done a lot of great things in the city of Hernando. We're a little town of about 16,000 people. We are actually a bedroom community of Memphis, just 12 miles over the state line. But I'm going back to one of the people on the panel this morning said you've got to plan 100 years out. So the first thing I want to do is set the base for why in my 12 years I was able to do some good things that I couldn't have done if the people before me had not done what they should have done. The number one reason that our town and our county is growing so rapidly and able to do all the things we do is because there is an incredible public education system in place. And I know that's a big one to tackle, but if you don't have good public education, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle forever. You always need to tackle that one first. I lived in Memphis, and there's some Memphis people here. And back when I was growing up, the Memphis schools weren't so good. My mother literally moved us across the state line because she heard they were building a new elementary school in South Haven, Mississippi. That's been going on since the early 70s. Well, when you have people that move for good education, they put an upward pressure on the system. They vote to raise their own taxes to make it better. So DeSoto County now has one of the highest ranked school districts in the state, although it is the largest, which those usually don't go together. They've got 33,000 kids and 43 schools, and the two of the high schools in the county are ranked number 1 and 2 in the state. Why is that important? 6 miles down the interstate from my little town, just an extra 6 miles, is another cute little town. And I would say their downtown's just about as cute as Hernando's downtown. They aren't doing anything. It's because their schools are no good. That's the reality. And if you are a person with kids, you are going to move somewhere where the schools are good. That's just a reality. So we have to tackle that issue first, and then you can build on it. And we have been building pretty rapidly in my town. And I'm no longer the mayor there. I was mayor until 4 months ago, but we made great strides, and I think we've set policies in place, so we're going to continue to make great strides. You've got to brand your city. And when I took office 2 years in, the recession hit, and all of a sudden we went from building 300 houses a year to building 50 houses a year. It just dropped, the bottom dropped out and everything changed. And we could have just sat there and cried. But what we did for 10 years is we built our brand. We just decided we were going to be the healthiest city in Mississippi. And that's what we branded ourselves. And we may still not be the healthiest city in Mississippi, but we say we are. There's a little town near us called Horn Lakes. Anybody know where Horn Lake, Mississippi is? All right, well, at the same time I was elected, Mayor Nat Baker was elected in Horn Lake, and he decided he was going to do similar to what I did when I said we were the healthiest city. He looked around the state and said, nobody has called themselves the greenest city in Mississippi. So he just said, okay, Horn Lake's the greenest city in Mississippi. They weren't even recycling. But his people got excited, and they started doing recycling. They started composting and letting you take the mulch back to your house. And they did some things, and 3 years later, they got the Green City Award in the state of Mississippi. So sometimes you just have to say it. Now, you always have to do it as well. But you have to jump out there and just figure out what the brand for your city is and move forward with it. And so in Hernando, we branded ourselves the healthiest city in Mississippi, and we started doing lots of things. And the Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation of Mississippi, who I'm a big fan of, they've seen, their programs have done so much policy change across our state. But they started a program in 2010 for the healthiest hometown. It's an incredible program where they pick the healthiest town and give them 50 grand, and then the small, medium, and large towns, the healthiest in those categories, get 25 grand. So for 125 grand a year, cities are changing their policies so they can get this money. It's a great use of funds, and it has worked, because one thing you have to do is create a community health council. The other thing you absolutely have to do is be comprehensively smoke-free. Hernando was the 7th town to become smoke-free in Mississippi, and because of the Blue Cross Blue Shield competition, I would say, we're up to 153 smoke-free towns. Because a lot of times your board will just enact a policy so they can get a little bit of money. I know it sounds crazy. That's how we got the Complete Streets policy passed in our town. My board wasn't quite for it, but I said, you know, it's just another thing to put in this application packet, and I got enough votes to get a Complete Streets policy just so we could win that award. So y'all think about those things. When you're building your downtown, you know, y'all all know what vacant downtowns look like. When I took office, our downtown was about 50% vacant. You know, it's the cute little downtown with the courthouse right in the middle and shops on all 4 sides and a highway on one side. And it was just kind of languishing. We decided to start a farmer's market right there. We now have the largest farmer's market in the state of Mississippi. And it's right on the square, not in a building. You don't have to have a building. We've been running that thing for about 11 years now with no building, and it works great. It's a USDA certified market. We take SNAP, we take WICS, we double your SNAP money. So you can do these things, and we've got some of our retailers now are mad that we have too much traffic on the square. Have y'all ever heard of retailers being mad because of traffic? So you sometimes create other problems, but now our square, very literally, is 100% occupied, and now there are buildings being built down the side streets. And I attribute a lot of that to the traffic we generated with that farmer's market. There are 3 really nice restaurants on the square. I spent some time in Covington, Louisiana, and I stole some ideas from y'all and took them to Hernando. One of them was movies on the square. Have y'all ever seen that little vacant lot downtown with a screen painted on the side of a building? They show movies in Covington. We went back to Hernando and did the same thing. We don't have a vacant lot. We just put up a big screen, and we'll have 400 kids sitting out there watching a movie in June. It's an incredible thing. It just draws people downtown. We also do concerts on the square. Every Thursday in June, everybody knows to show up on the courthouse lawn, and we just got live music. We all know how activity makes things change. There's some other things we've done. We've worked on policy. I think she mentioned earlier that we had done the joint use agreement stuff. We cannot afford to build a gym for basketball in our town, and it would be stupid of us to do it. There are 4 of them in schools right in our town that are locked up. Why would we build another one? So we go to the principals and asked if we could do it, and of course they start, what's the word they use? Oh no, there's liability. I can't stand that word. It just wears me down. But that's always their first excuse. What they really mean is, no, your guys are probably gonna dirty the building up, somebody's gonna clog up a toilet and flood a classroom, it's just a pain in our neck. That's what they really mean. But we went to the state legislature, and in Mississippi now we have a joint use agreement law. So if we use the school, if a city or county uses the school, that liability automatically shifts on to the city. So now they can't use that as an excuse. Then they have to start talking about the real reasons they don't want us to use the school, and we solve those problems. So we're running a basketball program in school-owned buildings with 360 kids without having to build another gym. So those kind of things are very important. Mississippi has something that we don't think any other state in the nation has. It's a piece of legislation called the Mississippi Redevelopment Act. So y'all are all familiar with brownfield sites. So we got a brownfield grant in Hernando, an assessment grant, and we assessed a bunch of properties, and it was kind of like pulling teeth to get people to come let us assess their properties, because they were scared if we failed them on a phase 1 or a phase 2, then they were going to be forced to clean it up, and they were scared. And we had to talk them through that. But then the Mississippi Redevelopment Act came. What that does, and I'm just going to go ahead and walk you through the example of how it's happening in Hernando. There was a vacant tractor garage or it wasn't vacant, it was still active. They were about to move out. So it, of course, failed its phase 1 and phase 2. There's some cleanup that has to be done. So everybody agreed on how much that was going to cost. The Department of Environmental Quality, the Mississippi Development Authority, and the city agreed that here's approximately what it's going to cost to clean it up. To entice the new owner to come in, because of course the new owner would probably just rather go to a place he doesn't have to clean up, right? And we'll end up with a vacant property that has a stigma on it. The state of Mississippi will give you back 150% of your cleanup costs. That's a huge number. So we put this building in the program. That building is now going to be cleaned up, torn down, and a 3-story mixed-use building is going to come because of this Mississippi Redevelopment Act. So what we're seeing now are people across the state of Mississippi are now looking for brownfield properties instead of going around them. So that's some legislation you might consider trying to get passed in Louisiana to incentivize the cleanup of stigmatized properties. We've got a big, because of our policies and the things that we were doing, there was a group that came to look at us and purchased 1,239 acres, I think. It's going to be called Hernando West. And they came to me and said, look, we know if the mayor's against us, we're going to be just shot. So what do you want us to do? I said, I want you to do something world-class, which means you've got to hire some really good land designers to do it. Are there any Looney Ricks Kiss people in here? Maybe. I know there's somewhere in the room. So they hired Looney Ricks Kiss to design this property, and of course, then the recession hit. So it's been sitting there, but now it's coming back. We're going to have 2,200 homes on a parcel adjacent to our downtown square. That one development is going to be bigger than 75% of the cities in our state. Let that sink in for a minute. So if we do it wrong, we've just ruined everything. So we're making sure it's a green development. We're making sure that every drop of rainwater that falls on that 1,200 acres stays there and no more flows off than it did today. And they've sold the first 8 lots there. And now they're about to do the next 70. So it's going to be about a 20-year build out. But you've got to have those policies in place. And so I'll go back once again to prior administrations. Hernando saw a big boom in the early 2000s, and all the way up to now, we're still seeing a boom. If we did not have any planning practices in place, can you imagine what it would have looked like? But the mayor before me did something really strong. He hired a master certified AICP planner, and we were the smallest population in the state to have a full-time planner like that. And it paid off in big dividends. When Kroger showed up, most people say, oh my goodness, it's a grocery store. Let's just let them build whatever they want. We had design guidelines in place, which they weren't used to in a town of 6,000. So we got a decent looking Kroger store. Then we redid our comprehensive plan in 2007. We held community meetings, and we have really tight design standards now. And it's important because those design standards have made our property values go from about $75 a square foot to $105 a square foot over the last 12 years. Those are big changes. So policy is very important. We've worked on, I heard the mayor earlier talking about his sewer system. That's never fun. But we actually did a regional sewer authority. And we still catch a lot of heat over that. To treat your sewer properly costs a lot of money. But our entire county went in and did a regional sewer authority, and we got rid of the old sewage lagoons we had and turned both of them into parks, believe it or not. And I was naive enough when I was running for mayor, I said, you know, we're just going to fill those in and turn them into parks. The DEQ wouldn't let us do it. So $2 million later, we now have turned them into parks. But you live and you learn. But one of them is just a wetland and nature area. The other one is a full-blown soccer complex. And as we started branding ourselves as a healthy city, we had to create a parks department. Can you imagine a healthy city without a parks department? There was no parks department in 2005 when I took office. We had a basketball court, we had 2 tennis courts in another park, and then a 20-acre park. And the public works department would go mow the grass when it got too tall. That's what we had. So we had to hire a parks director, and eventually we had to hire staff. And so over the last 12 years, we went from that to having 6 parks, and we took over baseball. We got 1,200 kids a year playing baseball. We've got 1,200 kids a year playing soccer, 360 playing basketball, and a total of 23 parks programs. So that's part of our brand, and you've got to offer those things. And when I speak in the next session after this, I'm going to focus totally on healthy communities, but you have to be very careful in that so that people don't feel like you're trying to force your ideas on them. So the thing we have always focused on is not telling people they have to be healthy, but making sure they know that if they want to be healthy, that we've created an atmosphere and an opportunity for them to do that. I think I'm almost done with mine. I've got two. Okay, so these things start culminating, and they start building upon each other. The next thing you know, your city shows up in Money Magazine's Best 100 Places to Live. And then it shows up in Family Circle Magazine as one of the top 8 places in the nation to raise a child or raise a family. And then the next thing you know, people are starting to move in. And then the people who had been here forever start to get mad about it. I think we've heard that NIMBY term, and that's happening, and it's something we really, really have to struggle with because our town grew from 90 to 2000, 114%, and then from 2000 to 2010, another 108%. So most of the people that live in Hernando have lived there less than 20 years. But the really interesting dynamic of that is they are young people with families. They take the kids to school, they both go to work. They come back home, find a way to get the kids to ball practice or dance lessons. They fix dinner, they do homework, and they go to bed. They are not engaged in the community because they are too dang busy. So the thing we've had to watch for and be very careful about is the people that show up at your board meetings and the people who yell the loudest are not your average citizen. They're the people who might be retired, or maybe have just lived there their whole life and are mad that these other people have moved in. And you end up, if you don't watch it, and the board will do this, making decisions based on what those people say instead of reaching out to the people who are going to work and school every day. And that's something that we're having to work through in our town at this very moment. Growth has its problems. I've got one more thing I wanted to talk about, and it's on here somewhere. I'll get to it when we get to the questions. All right, so just to back up a little bit, we're a town of 16,000 people. We were a town of 2,600 people in 1990. So you can see the growth rate that's happened. And that growth is getting ready to keep happening. We are starting to have flooding problems, big flooding problems, because nobody ever looked at that state law that says you have to keep all your water on your property. We just started looking at it literally about 6 years ago, about halfway into my term. And now we're having trouble with people downstream flooding. So those are some major issues we're having to look at, and the new mayor is going to have to deal with it, so I shove that one off on him. But we do have to be thinking a little more long-term. I always said I was trying to look 50 years into the future because since I live in the healthiest hometown, I hope I live 50 more years. But we can't be making knee-jerk decisions. If we're going to make the city last, we've got to steal ideas from each other. We've got to share ideas with each other and educate our citizens. And that's the hard part, is educate them on why you're doing what you're doing. And if you can tackle that piece and get everybody on board to move forward together, then you're going to create a healthy and vibrant town. And we can all learn from that. And it's going to affect all of us. You know, if the town below me, Coldwater, Mississippi, that I was talking about, doesn't start getting better, there's going to be a point that Hernando will just hit a plateau. We won't be able to get any better because the things around us are not so good. So we've also got to work in a regional manner. So I'll stop for now, and you can come up and talk.
When you're 4'9", you don't do well with podiums. So I've decided I'd be much better off out here. But it's a pleasure for me to speak with you all this evening. Gonzales is not a very big place. It's 9 square miles, and it has just over 10,000 people. But we are very fortunate to have a great mayor and council and planning commission that has really pushed forward with a new master plan. And in 2015, CPEX helped us revamp all of our codes, and in 2016, we really took that master plan into a new set of development codes. And entering into new code is often very scary and is sometimes seen as something that would deter development and deter growth, but I'm here to tell you that is definitely not the case. As previous speakers have mentioned, downtown areas are very important, and revitalizing older downtowns are also important. And Gonzales definitely has an older downtown area, which was a highlighted section of our master plan. I wanted to talk about two specific projects in the downtown area that really, one we're seeing change already, and the other one is more like the 9 innings of baseball. You know, you have to just stick with the project and see it through, and I can already see that those first few innings we are winning. So the first part of this is in our downtown area, we have an older state-owned road, LA 44. The city wanted to take that road and really do some aesthetic improvements and encourage new development along those old buildings of the roadway. Well, the State Department of Transportation did not approve our project permit, so the city decided to take over ownership of the roadway, which is very scary for a city with one engineer and not a lot of staff. But this is a possible opportunity that I wanted to share with you all that is statewide, and it's the State Road Transfer Program. So the city of Gonzales was able to have that road refurbished and all of the pedestrian walkways, the ADA ramps, the striping improved. And in exchange for us taking ownership of this section of roadway, the state gave us $1.3 million of credit to be applied to a state road just in our city that was not going to get any work anytime soon. So the point of me saying this is an opportunity that is out there, and the state will come in and evaluate the value of that road. So to add to the scary part of taking over a road, the city of Gonzales maintains 0 traffic signals. We don't own or operate a signal at all, and this road had 3 signals. So the first thing the mayor and council said is, can we really take on 3 traffic signals? But I'm here to tell you there are contractors and experts out there that will gladly help you take on those challenges and take over. So if anyone is looking for a way to get creative in the economic environment that we are in, if there's a state road in your area that is eligible for that transfer, it is definitely something that has helped the city. And now we're moving forward with advertising for a full landscape bench beautification project along a mile of road that would have otherwise just stayed vacant. So to spearhead from that project, downtown Gonzales was identified as a potential stop for the passenger rail that has been talked about from Baton Rouge to New Orleans. And so the Southern Rail Commission has finished a feasibility study and identified that that rail line is, a really good project and it should be pursued. So the mayor and council decided that stop that was on that feasibility plan in Gonzales, right in our downtown area, was something that we wanted to invest in. So the mayor, council, and planning commission bought the land around the stop. They just went to the church that owned the vacant property. There was some older buildings on the site and said, hey, you guys aren't using this, we are interested, and it worked out. To give you like a really good piece of how this project has really just sparked new development, that site is the city has now revamped the buildings that were there and rents it to the Department of Motor Vehicles. So we took this old site that was not being utilized at all, and now we have a revenue stream, and there's activity in that area, and a little winery has opened up next door, and an antique business has opened on the other side. So little did we know, we thought we were securing property only for a potential train stop, and now we have the Department of Motor Vehicles, and we're actually looking at renting another building to another entity. So when we look at this train project that's maybe 10 years away, hopefully it's not, hopefully it's much quicker, I would have never thought we're seeing a revenue today by thinking that we want to be a part of this train project that might not become reality for quite some time. So that's a scary thing as well, to invest money into something that you might think you get no return on that investment today, and then to turn around and say, wow, look, now we have a revenue stream. So that's two things going on in our downtown district that was identified in the plan, that we just started to chip away at those action items. But another piece of the plan is not just the downtown or the old area of town, but new growth. And just like one of the speakers earlier mentioned, you want the people that are here to be happy, and you want new people to come and be happy. And so as an engineer, of course, the plan is nice, but you need to take the plan and you need to do even more planning. So some just tidbits of advice that I felt like were really, really, really important to us is to know what our infrastructure could handle. What could our sewer system handle? What can our water system provide? How can we tell people to come here and develop if we don't have the infrastructure to serve them? And, the great quote, if you build it, they will come. So the city council supported my request to do a comprehensive sewer model, comprehensive water model about 7 years ago. And we looked at where are we today, what do we need to invest in, and we started to expand the sewer treatment plant, look at some water projects to make sure we could have, if all of the city developable area were built out, we could service them. And I can tell you right now, Southern Lifestyle Development is building hundreds of acres of a multi-use development in the south side of town where there was nothing. And it is definitely because the city partnered with the developer and making sure that they have all the infrastructure needs there. And the last thing I want to leave you with, and again, new codes are scary, our city did not have a multi-use development. I don't even know the last time a multi-family development, because our codes were so restrictive. And so through the planning process, a lot of the city leaders were very scared of density, just very scared of density. We're on the fringe of rural. We like big lots. We don't want, high-rise development. Through the 2-year process with CPEX, studies that they provided and data that they showed us convinced all of our stakeholders, all of our leaders, that density is not bad. As soon as the plan was adopted, we had 3 multifamily developments come to us to rezone, and now have submitted plans to permit and build very, very nice products. So in summary, I know I had 4 very random different examples, but it all comes together in the sense that it's scary to do things that are outside of the box or you think may deter growth. And in the end, if it's smart and it's based on facts and data and experts, it can be a great thing. So I guess don't be afraid of change.
So thanks very much. That's a great spread of ideas that we've had. And what we'd like to do now is take some questions from you. But before we do, I have a question for each of you. And That is, what is the biggest challenge that you found in going from that planning to implementation and making that first leap of faith of making things happen? And I think each of your microphones should work. You can speak from there.
Can we start?
Yes.
I'll tell you the hardest part to me is the fact that government works so slow. Coming from the banking side of it to this, to being the mayor, everything works slow. I mean, from city to parish to state and federal. I mean, it just it takes forever to get things done. That drives me crazy. So that's the hardest part.
So I definitely agree. Having worked in the private design world in the beginning of my career, government moves slowly. So I second that. And I would add, we're in an economic environment where funds are tight. And so in order to do things, I feel like it's lots of collaboration. It's not that I'm going to have the funds to build everything today. I might use this funding source to build this piece of it and then grab some other funds to build another piece. So you have to look down to that ninth inning and chip away at some of these projects because they take quite a while to put the pieces of funding together.
I think I'm going to agree with both of them. And I'll expand a little on what you just said. It seems like when you get started that there's no way you can do it all. And you feel like you have to wait on the exact right time for everything to align so you can get it all done right. And I had to step back early on and realize that you just have to do something. And if you just start doing something, you do one of those things, next thing you know, you look back and it's 12 years and you've done 200 things. But you can't wait. You have to make some really good decisions and get some consensus and just go do something. And while you're in the middle of doing that something, the other one will start, and then the other one will start, and they just build. But it's never going to be perfect timing.
So do we have any questions for any of our speakers? None? Yes.
Yes, yes. We had already had, Ruston had invested about, I don't know, 6-8 years ago in fiber, so we already had that set up, and we have upgraded it some. So yes, we did look at that. Most of it was already in place, though.
For us, we are very fortunate to have a very strong network through a private entity in the city. So we did not have to venture out into the telecommunications infrastructure side.
And in Hernando, we're the same. We have 3 different franchise companies that we've allowed to come into our city, and they're providing that service.
So what would you say if you were able to fund anything in the world, and what is the dream implementation project that you would like for your city and looking in the next 10 years?
You want to take it first? Since you're the lady, I'll let you
Well,
have
I
first.
would have passenger rail. And I'm not saying that because I feel like rail is the answer to everything, but I feel like for our region, we have infrastructure needs on the roadway side that cannot be fixed with the funds we have. We have lots of commuters. I feel like if we had that I say one thing like it's a little thing. If we had passenger rail, but if the rail line were in operation, it would remove some of the cars from the road, thus helping our congestion issue and help spark that growth along the line. So I would build a rail system.
And we actually studied a rail system. We're lucky enough to have the appropriations chairman in the Senate as one of our senators. And he sent us about $80 million a while back, and they spent about $4 million of it studying what we were going to do about transit. And everybody came to the conclusion that where we were in our proximity to Memphis, it was going to be dedicated, or rapid bus transit, just dedicated lanes for bus. And then all the other cities in the county said, no, we don't want to do it. And Hernando was the only one that said we would do it, and it just wouldn't work, so we had to send the $80 million back. So there's a lot of minds to be changed in rural areas, and that's a boat we missed for certain. But if I could just build anything, Right now, it would be just better infrastructure. You know, we're a town that was built in 1836, and infrastructure as a whole, we've got sewer lines that are rotting, and we've got water lines that need replacing that leak all the time. And we've done a 6-tier plan, but now it's time to start over and do the next plan. And that's the thing that a lot of people just don't want to think about or don't want to talk about. The board doesn't want to allocate money, but we have got to get our infrastructure in Hernando up to par, and it's just going to cost probably $100 million on a city that operates on a $20 million annual budget.
Mine would be about water. 16 parishes in northeast Louisiana. We get all our water from the Sparta. 18 counties in southeast Arkansas get the water from the same Sparta. That level's going down. When we recruit companies to come to Ruston, the first question I have to ask is how much water are you going to need? If they need, anything over just a normal church building almost, we can't do it because our water level is dropping. I tell our congressional delegation all the time, it's the tale of two cities. You take Flint, Michigan, they had 3 different water sources. They've got all the water in the world. They just didn't treat it. We, on the other hand, as northeast Louisiana, are running out of water. We've lost 3 paper mills already in the region because of the water levels. We already have salt intrusion in part of some of our parishes, and that affects everything. So if I could solve any problem, it'd be the water issue we have in northeast Louisiana, because not only does it prevent us from growing the way we need to, but it hurts us tremendously as far as economic development.
Thanks. So other questions? Got a wealth of information here, sitting here at your disposal.
Can I
Yes,
make
please do.
You brought up Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I did not say this earlier, and I should have, and I apologize, but Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation was one of the groups that gave us one of the grants for our bike trail connectors too, and we are very appreciative also of that company's foundation.
Okay, last call. Yes.
Surely, that is definitely one of my out-of-the-box projects. So what Camille is referencing is a low-elevation subdivision that has repetitively flooded in the city of Gonzales. So we, as the city government, have explored every possible option to try to help them, and there is no man-made solution. The solution is to relocate them. Through lots of research and hard work, we've gotten in touch with USDA and the Natural Resource Conservation Service. They're a division of USDA that is actually working with us to buy out the whole neighborhood. It is a long process. Like, this is more than 9 innings of baseball. This is the whole season. So we are so fortunate to have stumbled upon this opportunity because USDA will actually appraise their homes as pre-flood home properties and pay them. The challenge is helping them to relocate and making them financially solvent. So Camille and CPEX have been fabulous in helping me and the city through Office of Community Development to try to help put some pieces together. When I mentioned funding coming from other places, trying to put the pieces together to help these people relocate. But it is an opportunity that did not even exist until Superstorm Sandy. It was used in New Jersey. It has not been, to my knowledge, in the southeast part of the country. They have not done a project like those in New Jersey until now. And I believe we're one of 2 communities. Camille would probably know. I think there's only one other community attempting this type of project. Of course, you run into ownership issues and secessions and all these challenges, but I feel like it's such a golden opportunity for a subdivision that we really don't know how else to help, that we just have to push forward to help them. So we started the project this summer, and I would say we're 3/4 of the way with the application process because every person needs to be involved in their own application. and the entire process probably will take 2 years. But it's going to be a great project. Once we get to the end, the land will be returned to natural wetlands. So the entire subdivision, even the subsurface piping, will be removed, and then the city will own and maintain it. We were fortunate that the city owned 53 acres undeveloped adjacent to this site that was just flood property. We were considering making it a park. At this time, we are now just going to incorporate this subdivision into that property, hopefully when it's all done. So hopefully in 2 years I can come back and tell you that it's finished.
Yes. So could everyone hear that question? It's a strategy to move the mindset out of a small town philosophy.
I haven't had any luck. So if you can picture, we are a city that sits at the intersection of I-55 and I-69, which is the NAFTA highway. I mean, those two intersect each other in my city limits. So what would you picture there? I'm picturing mid-rise office buildings, possibly hotels. The Planning Commission just voted to downzone the property at that intersection and build houses there. Literally. So y'all are going to see a subdivision going in at I-69 and I-55. So we have not had a lot of luck because the people who have moved from Memphis into those suburbs moved there for a reason, because they wanted big lots, and it has been like pulling teeth. The things that we did do to get us a little in the right direction is when I took office twice, I took a bus with 50 people on it to Franklin, Tennessee. And those 50 people were the Board of Aldermen, the Planning Commission, the bankers, just all the people in the community that had a stake. And what I figured out, and we took builders as well, and sometimes builders would have interesting ideas, but if it was outside the little formula the bank had, the bank wouldn't loan them the money, so we had to take the bankers as well. But when we took those 2 busloads of people on 2 separate trips to look at what Franklin was doing, because they're about 12 years ahead of us in a lot of ways, and we were able to change some mindsets. Right after we came back, we had a subdivision that came up, and the builder was trying to figure out what to do, and I said, man, this one makes perfect sense to pull those houses right up next to the street, put the garages behind, build big porches people can actually sit on. He said, I know the Planning Commission's not going to let me put them up next to the street. And I said, well, let's try. We just got back from Franklin. They all loved it. And sure enough, we were able to make that move and get a cool little subdivision that way. So it's a continual education process, but sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
He's absolutely right. It is an education process. We were very fortunate in Gonzales during the 2015 plan update that CPEX could provide that education. And the key to changing the entire Planning Commission's mindset on especially density and types of development was to the Planning Commission chairman. The leader really embraced what CPEX had to say. He's an older gentleman. He's been in the community forever. He was not the one you would think would just go with the new age development ideas, but he embraced it and he sold it. So you need a champion. You need a champion that they trust, and somebody that really believes in it.
I totally agree with all of that. I think in Ruston, having Louisiana Tech there helps tremendously. Doing the Moving Ruston Forward initiative, I mean, we had 30 town hall meetings, and they weren't just talking about Ruston moving forward and what we were trying to do there. That might have lasted an hour, hour and a half with all the questions. But then it just turned into a town hall meeting, because here I am, the rookie mayor that's been in office a year, listening to everything they had to ask. I mean, and the third thing is, and answering their questions. And the third thing is, we're under the Larson Act, so we have a 5-person city council. 3 of those came in with me as rookies. So there was 3 on the council, new and myself. But as my council will tell you, and I have 2 ladies who say this all the time, we're a team. And we go places, we go to city to town hall meetings together. We go to the different churches in our city at different times. They see us as a team, and it has pulled our city together, and it's moved them from being that sleepy little town in North Louisiana that just happened to be lucky and have a college in it, to being truly what we believe is a college town. So I think it's just a progression of talking to your people, meeting with your people, being totally transparent in everything that's said. That's the one thing that is told to me more than anything else. We can always come to your office. You may be busy, but you'll see us, and you'll answer any question, even in city council meetings, which has never happened before. You're transparent, and that's a big part of our success, or what success we've had.
Thank you. Any other questions? Boo?
Me? Yes. We don't have an assessment for projects, but we did pass the 3/4 cent sales tax. Yes, ma'am. And that was, without that, we couldn't be doing any of the projects, to be honest, that we're able to do. That was the big key. And I think there were several keys to it. First, it was a dedicated tax. The people saw the list of projects we had. It was for a dedicated amount of time, 20 years. They knew that we were going to set up a website where they could go and see exactly where the money was going. If they wanted to see where Martin Luther King Extension, that was a project that had been on the books literally for 22 years, but never been done. They could go see when it bid, how much the bid was, how many days it was going to take, if it's already bid, how much is left on the contract, and how much is left of the money. So again, totally transparent, totally able to see. And the other key to it was not only the 30 town hall meetings, but the fact that there were projects throughout the city. But I think the real eye-opener, and I started to say this earlier, but we had all had lunch, but it's been a little while, so I can say it now. The people on our north side of our city could not believe that we had houses on the south side of our city that when we had a 2-inch rain, their houses flooded, not with rainwater, but with sewer. And when we showed them pictures, when we talked about that, wherever we were, but especially in the north side of town, so many of them came to me afterwards and said, I can't believe we have this in our city. We've got to change it. So it was a realization of, these people on the north side had not been to the south side. That's not part of their driving route. So it was a eye-opening experience for a lot of folks. They saw what we needed, and like I said, I think it would have passed 80-20 if we hadn't had the state come in 8 days before, but it passed. We have a great city that sees the needs and will fund what they need to. Thank you.
Was there one more question over here? Yes.
Yes, in fact, everything we do, from economic development standpoint, we work with tech because literally 2 weeks into my first, I'm in my first term, so 2 weeks into my job as mayor, I started making some calls trying to get some companies to come to Ruston. We needed some new companies. We had not recruited a company to come to Ruston in over 20 years because we have tech, we have Grambling. We didn't need them, people thought. And we were very lucky. We talked to someone. We got someone there to come. They were looking at bringing their manufacturing from China to the United States, but they had already found a city to go to. We could not give them a lot of incentives because we didn't have any money for economic development. But we got them. I begged them to come and just spend a day and a half with us in Ruston. They came. We talked about the companies that are located in Ruston and are there. They could be anywhere else, but they stay there because there's something very special about Ruston. But then we took them to Tech the next day, to the engineering department. This company makes youth motorcycles, electric and gas powered. Startup company, about 3 years old. Took them to Tech, to the engineering building, and it was supposed to be an hour and a half long meeting. And Dr. Geis, president of Tech, went with us to the engineering building. We talked professors, but then we went down into the basement of Bogart Hall, the engineering building, and for 3 hours they stayed there and they talked to students and saw the stuff that the students were working on, not for credit, but just for fun. They were totally blown away. But they had the incentives at the other city. We understood. 3 weeks later, they called us and said, we cannot get out of our mind what's taking place at Louisiana Tech. Can we come back and talk? We were able to make the deal happen, and now they're producing over 100,000 bikes this year. So yes, we're actually working with Tech to develop a high-tech, what we're calling a high-tech industrial park that they will be involved in. Also, the community college system will be involved in. The city of Ruston will build a building that will be, we haven't decided on quite the name, Center for Manufacturing Excellence and Robotics, to where we use that as a hook to try to get companies to come there. Hey, if you come, you can have the intellectual knowledge that Tech can bring to the table in this building and create robotics or whatever we need for your business, but you got to locate in Ruston or Lincoln Parish. So yes, we work with them every way we can. The incubator part they have on the campus, Tech Point, they'll be adding more space there, but they're also looking with us at the space that we can jointly do together.
And we're doing it on a different level in DeSoto County. We had at the high school level, we had a VOTEC school that had been one campus there since the 70s, where every school in the county had to bus into that one when they did their VOTEC. And they made a conscious decision to spend money on it. Now, of course, they changed the term to Career Tech, but there are now two, and they're state of the art. And where we are, there's a lot of logistics because we're so close to the airport and FedEx, so these big companies come in and warehouse their stuff. So logistics is a big employer where we are. So there's actually a major in VOTEC now in DeSoto County for logistics. And so they're listening to the industry. They're getting a lot of input from the industry. A lot of the industry is helping fund it. There is a major car dealer there who's very free with his money, who has been donating high-tech tools to the automotive VOTEC trade there. So, there's a nursing one as well, because we have a shortage of nurses. So they kind of go with whatever the economy is dictating. And we've got high school kids who are actually able to do rotations in our local hospital as part of their VOTEC training. So I think the younger you start, probably the better off you are.
Great. Well, I'll close with that. I do want to thank our speakers. I think this is a good example of how having real passionate leaders who are passionate about their community and change is really what you need, and then you tap into your passionate citizens as well, and really can make that movement happen and create great things in your cities. Thank you all for attending, and we appreciate speaking.